Tonight, I Hear Voices Theatre Company, in association with Spanner House of Horror and Sally's Intimate Dry Cleaning Services, presents a tale of abominable apprehensionness, featuring trepidatude and disgustation in equal John Le Mesuriers. Yes, from the people who brought you Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Humphreys. Taste the legs of Dracula and the satanic rites of Bagpuss. You are cordially invited to quake with oats at A Ghost Story for Christmas, belated July edition. And now a word from our sponsors.
Pianos.
Thank you.
I'm not finished yet.
My apologies.
Yes, pianos. Is your iron frame rusting? Is your upright keeling over? Is your grand worth less than half a knicker? Want to get it humanely destroyed but can't afford the vet's bills? Well, why not try the all-new Himmler-Krippenhague patented piano trebuchet? Yes, the all-new Himmler-Krippenhague patented piano trebuchet, guaranteed to permanently dispose of all pianofortes, harpsichords, virginals, and even some vicar's organs. Ask your local Church of England organ twanger for particulars. You won't be disappointed. And remember, avoid imitations. Only the genuine, all-new Himmler-Krippenhague patented piano trebuchet makes this noise.
Now read on.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Card, Valentine Card, the face of radio, the man in clothes, and the Home Service's voice for all things unspeakably horrid and non-specifically dreadful. Tonight, it is my dubious pleasure to announce in glorious, trouser-soaking television that which is, was, and might well again be. Oh, Tinkle, and I'll come to you, my lad. Christmas is a time of recollection, a time of ritual, a time when old friends, young families, and other individuals one would quite frankly rather be shot of, light the candles, lock fast the shutters, and gather round a roaring drunk to imbibe tales of unremitting misery, unquiet ghastliness, and any other things which make a whole day eating sprouts with grandma seem comparatively tolerable. Perhaps the greatest master of the art of the British ghost story was Montague Rhodes Jim, medievalist, antiquary, solo champion of the Eton three-legged race 4 years hopping, and provost of Screaming King's College, Oxbridge in the year of our Lord 1900 and sixpence halfpenny. Across the parading centuries, King's has become inexorably associated with the founding of many Christmas traditions. The Festival of the 9 Lessons from the College Chapel, the Festival of the 9 Bottles from the College Bursa, and the random beheading of first-year boys on the 3rd Sunday of Advent. But also, and most importantly for the purposes of this evening's entertainment, the gathering of the Chitwag Society, where the wittiest, prettiest, and often blondest of undergraduates meet in the provost rooms in the dying hours of Christmas Eve for the unveiling of a fresh ghost story genially exhumed by Monty himself.
And so I said to the Dean of Magdalen, just because I concede it is considered canonical in Deuteronomy, it does not follow I would recommend your sister attempt it, particularly not with an egg whisk and her suspender belt.
How witty, how witty!
Oh, Monty, you are one.
Hurrah for Monty! And egg whisks!
And suspender belts.
And sherry too!
And sherry too!
Indeed, but I fancy that trifling anecdote is not quite the entire reason we are assembled here tonight.
Tell us a ghost story, Monty.
Yes, a new ghost story.
A ghost story!
Oh, please, Monty.
Do tell. Yes, one with ancient possessed artifacts. And slime.
And bed linen.
And tentacles.
Oh, yes, yes, yes,
Tentacles.
tentacles.
And legs.
Yes.
Yes, 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 legs.
Lots of legs. Lots of legs. Yes.
Yes, and autoerotic asphyxiation.
Yes, and autoerotic asphyxiation.
Oh no.
Sorry. Sorry, I just wondered.
Yes, I fancy perhaps you have the wrong college society. That's 4 doors down, on the right.
4 doors down. Sorry.
Oh, and don't forget your oranges.
Oh, yes. Oranges. Sorry. On the right, yes.
Now then, where were we?
A story concerning ancient possessed artifacts.
And bed linen.
Ah, well, actually, I think I could oblige you on both counts. Ooh! Allow me to elucidate.
I suppose you'll be getting away pretty soon now full term is over, Professor.
Said a person not in this story, thus creating a logical paradox which threatened to terminally derail the narrative before it had properly commenced.
Yes, my friends have been making me take up golf this term, and I mean to go to the East Coast, in point of fact to Felixstoft, I dare say you know it, for a week or 10 days, whichever is longer, to improve my game. I hope to get off tomorrow, after which I intend to leave for Felixstoft.
Replied Professor Perkins to his currently non-present interlocutor as they sat, not together, in the hospitable hall of St. Fred's College. Professor Perkins, who was most definitely present, and indeed the notional subject of tonight's tale, was a young-ish man of indeterminate thighs, neat and precise in speech when not flustered, and totally destitute, alas, of a sense of humour. In short, something of the typical fussy bachelor academic, so oft the unwilling protagonist in my festive narratives. At this juncture, a voice piped up to the side which was already not occupied by another person almost entirely absent from this story.
Oh, Perkins, if you're going to Felixstoft, I wish you would look at the site of the Tinkler's preceptory, and let me know if you think it would be any good to have a dig there in the summer.
It was, as you might suppose, a person of antiquarian pursuits who said this. But since he too merely appears in this prologue, there is no need to describe him in any detail.
I'm wearing a hat, you know.
Oh, don't pad your part, love.
Well, really.
Certainly, Professor Hatt. Yes, if you describe the whereabouts of the preceptory site, I'll do my best to give you an idea of the lie of the land when I get back.
Oh, Perkins, that would be decent of you, although I doubt there's much showing above the ground. Must be down close to the beach by now. The sea has encroached tremendously along that section of the coast. I should think, though, it's about 3/4 of a mile from the Cock Inn of the north end of the town. Where are you going to stay?
Well, at the Cock Inn, as a matter of fact. I couldn't get rooms anywhere else. Most of the lodging houses are shut up in winter, it seems.
Holidaying on your own again, eh, Perkins? Well, perhaps I'll pop over later to Felixstoft and keep you company.
No, there's really no need for that, Professor Rogers.
Oh, he gets a damn name check then, does he? Professor Rogers is here now. Yes, well, I actually get to appear in the main story.
At the very end?
After the denouement? Yes, well, my arrival's still jolly important, you know.
Important? You don't even have any lines.
Yes, but my arrival's described.
There's nothing worth describing about you.
You're not even wearing a hat.
That's enough, the pair of you. Neither of you minor characters are going to be in the main story, and if you're not quiet this instant, I shall arrange for you both to lodge in reported text with an aged cousin possessing diabolical heart-exciting tendencies.
Sorry, Monty.
Good. Now, where were we?
Well, I believe I was about to turn to Perkins and say, of course, if you don't want me to drop by for a night or two, I shan't be offended.
Well, if you must, for an odd night. But I shall be mainly working or out on the links, so it might be a rather dull time for you.
Well done, Perkins. I won't come if you don't want me, but I thought I'd do nicely to keep the ghosts off, as they say. Oh, I do beg your pardon. I oughtn't to have mentioned that. I forgot you didn't like levity on these topics.
I freely own that I do not like careless talk about what you call ghosts. I hold that any semblance, any appearance or concession to the view that such things might exist is equivalent of a renunciation of all that I hold most sacred. And I do not think that anything shall ever shake me of that belief.
All right, Perkins, have it your own way. See you in a few days.
On the following day, Perkins did, as he had hoped, succeed in getting away from his college, and in arriving at Felixstoft, where he was made welcome in the lobby of the Cock Inn by its proprietor, one Miss Fenella Taut.
We are, of course, delighted, Professor Perkins, to welcome a respectable academic gentleman such as yourself to the Cock.
Yes, indeed, you have quite a grand establishment here, Miss, Taut.
Why, that is most kind of you to say, Professor Perkins. I suppose our dear old Cock is indeed quite a size now, having been extended on a number of occasions over the years, particularly under the hand of my dear departed grandfather, the late Mr. Taut Sr., and nevertheless, there has been a cock on the front in Felixstoft in some proportion or the other since 1755.
Yes, you are very close to the beach now, aren't you? I mean, whatever may have been the original distance between the inn and the sea, not more than 60 yards separate them now, eh? Are the waves noisy?
I regret so. In the days of my dear departed father, the late Mr. Taut Jr., and more recently still my mother, the late Mrs. Taut, née Elder Bobbins, I'm sure the Cock felt much farther back, but since I have taken up the esteemed position myself, it is the oft-voiced impression by many of the more observant guests that the Cock is so much closer to the front, to the extent I fear that one day the entire Cock might slip inexorably into the sea, but that is perhaps the inevitable conclusion of all such enterprises, is it not? Which reminds me, will you be requiring a double-bedded room?
Ah, well, I hadn't really given much...
Well, it is simply, I recall from your initial telegram, you stated that as an academic gentleman, you would be taking quite a large number of books and some scientific equipment and golfing equipment with you, which I can see from the quite prodigious bulging of your personal baggage is quite clearly the case, and thus would be requiring space to manipulate. Regrettably, the only chamber of any size one can currently offer is really a double-bedded one, and unfortunately the bed frames are densely robust and difficult for a lady to easily transpose from one room to another. Why, even Baxter finds them more than his posterior cruciates can comfortably accommodate.
Buggers, they be!
Yes, thank you, Baxter!
He has weak ligaments.
I believe that is what I articulated, yes. And the room, I do hope this furnishing redundancy to the tune of one should not prove in any way non-conducive to your entire residential satisfaction.
Well, I suppose I could rough it for the short time I'm here.
Oh, that is most generous of you, Professor Perkins. Well then, I shall arrange to have you popped in number 107. Baxter!
Yes,
I'm popping this gentleman into my front double chamber. Would you care to handle his accoutrements?
Who are?
The cases, Baxter, the cases.
Who are?
Look, they were rather expensive cases, and everything inside is a tad delicate. Yes, so if it's not too much trouble on the stairs, could your man possibly be just a fraction more...
Buggers!
Careful? Yes, look, do you mind if I do that myself?
Oh, it's no problem at all, is it, Baxter?
Buggers!
Yes, I'm afraid it is a problem. I'd much rather
Ass bastards!
No, never mind.
Oh, good. After all, I rather think he's getting into a rhythm now.
"15 minutes or so later, Professor Perkins was comfortably installed in the large double-bedded room of which we have conveniently heard speak. The chamber was surrounded on 3 sides by windows looking out seawards, but set into walls in the conventional manner. That is to say, the central window looked straight out to sea, and those on the left and right commanded prospects along the shore to the north and south, respectively, but not necessarily in that order. Left alone, Professor Perkins carefully and meticulously unpacked his delicate valuables.
What beauties!
Retiring to rest, Perkins arranged the remains of his shattered theodolite upon the commodious table, before sitting beside the tabulated commode to polish up his mid-iron and unbend his much-abused niblick. Once everything was in apple pie order, that is to say, steaming and smothered with thick custard, Professor Perkins turned in for the night.
Oh, Mother.
The population of the inn was, being autumn, largely a golfing one, as Perkins discovered the next morning amidst the fried coffee and French roast bacon of the cock's breakfast room, where he found himself seated across from a ruddy-cheeked ancien militaire, secretary of the Cecil Rhodes Hang Some Sense Into Them Club for retired white supremacists, and part-time military cake enthusiast, one Colonel Barker Wildman.
Conversely, the Bengal tiger is demonstrably a highly profligate beast, which comes as a bally surprise to most tourists to India, I can tell you, on the grounds that over 97% of them are Jewish.
The tourists.
The tigers. Pass the chutney, will you?
Oh, yes, of course. So you're telling me all tigers are Jewish?
Not all tigers, obviously. Only those in Bengal, and that's excluding the 2% which don't even speak tourist English, thus making it very difficult for their barbers to accurately ascertain any religious affiliation. What did you say you're a professor of, anyway?
Ontography.
Ah, excellent. Sounds good and Protestant. Ontography. 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 Yes, definitely Protestant. Is there much call for it in the off-season?
Well, actually, it's...
Ooh! Is that a fairy cake?
I really couldn't say.
I think it is a fairy cake. Well, I don't mind if I do. Whilst, of course, odd for the breakfast table, the Siberian tiger is almost uniformly Episcopalian. And sticky. I take it you're here for the golf.
Were the set of irons a giveaway?
The way you were wearing them, yes. You're not any good, are you?
I'm told I need to improve my game.
Splendid! We'll play together then, eh?
Well,
I tell you what, 17 holes. Let's put 5 shillings on it to make things more interesting, shall we?
I'm really not that proficient.
10 shillings it is then. Grab your matchy and I'll see you on the links. Last one there's a whoopsie.
And so, Professor Perkins, one of whose principal characteristics was pluck, spent the greater part of the day improving his game in the company of this Colonel Wildman. Over the course of 17 holes, Wildman regaled Perkins with colourful and largely violent tales of his decades stationed in Kashmir, including the day he wrestled a horse in a patisserie, the weekend he ordered a whole platoon shot for simultaneously considering marmalade. and the Ramadan when he burned down a mosque for looking at him in a funny way.
Whereas in Bhutan, Professor, it is vital to one's very survival to remember that in the Bumthang district, the duck is worshipped as a sacred animal, because it is regarded by those rude peoples as a fish, when it is, in point of fact, as we in the enlightened Protestant West have known for many years, clearly a species of marsupial.
Are you quite certain of all that, Colonel?
Course! 4!
Oh dear, I don't think that's heading in precisely the correct,
What's that bloody water doing there?
I believe that's the North Sea.
Yes, but who put it there? I blame the Pope. Both of them. That's 9 whole balls they've had off me today, the blighters. What do they think I am? Made of balls? Now, where were we?
I believe it was my shot.
Oh, well, yes, if you must. Yes, I've seen whole families burned alive before my very legs for the crime of duck aspersion by Bhutanese juju men. And what's more, using only their own earwax as a rudimentary form of accelerant. 4! Good God! That'll have some distance to it.
Yes, it does rather seem to be heading in the desired direction.
No chance it'll ever get in, though. Not at this range. Not a hope. Bugger me.
It was 10 shillings we agreed, wasn't it, Colonel?
Bloody popery!
From this juncture onwards, the Colonel's demeanour began to assume a colouring so lurid that even Perkins jibbed at the thought of walking home with him from the links. He determined, after a short and furtive look at that bristling moustache and those incarnadine features, that it would be wiser to allow the influences of fairy cakes and laudanum to do what they could with the Colonel before the dinner hour should render a discussion of his 10 shillings inevitable.
I might walk home alone tonight along the beach, yes, and take a look, there'll be light enough for that, at the ruins of which Professor Hatt was talking. Not quite sure exactly where they are, but I'm certain I should find some conveniently situated local information dispenser to point me in the right direction.
And so, as Perkins crunched along the slowly darkening beach, he found his expectation of navigational assistance apparently satisfied with the appearance in the distance of a small, tatty, short-trousered scarecrow, precariously supported by blanched, hairless legs, reminiscent of bits of string with knots tied in them.
I say, you there, boy.
What?
Is the preceptory in this direction?
The preceptory?
Yes.
Well, Squire, it's entirely possible like it might be, given that I ain't got a clue what one of them is.
A preceptory, the headquarters of an order of monastic knights, dating from around the 1100s, most likely possessing a buttressed tower and a vaulted undercroft.
Oh, well, that's nice, isn't it?
Dear Lord, does no one teach even the rudiments of Norman Gothic these days?
Well, this is Suffolk.
I'm after a big, damp, salty ruin by the Cock.
Yeah, you look the sort.
Impudent, juvenile narrative device. I mean, I am in search of a large archaeological site situated by saline waters, probably about 3/4 of a mile or so from the Cock Inn.
Oh, that! All those broken old stones jutting out through the gorse. Why didn't you just say?
I thought I had repeatedly. Well, what's the best route?
Well, look, follow the beach until you get near the sandy bit, then strike inland, just past the hanging oak. Take a sharp left at the triple padlock mausoleum, then right at the burning ash tree. Don't feed the spider's babies, mind. Cut through Abbot Thomas's rose garden, past Martin's Close, which is just down the side of number 12, or number 13 if you get there after dark. Mind the Wailing Well, step over the rats if you can, then just follow your nose. Oh, and if you meet a fella called Dexter Braxton Hicks, you've gone too far.
How so?
He's written by another author.
I see. Well, I suppose I should give you something for your trouble.
Or, if you want the quickest route, just follow the beach.
Yes, upon reflection, I won't give you anything then.
Ooh, that happened quick.
Perkins decided, quite understandably, to take the more direct route along the shoreline, ultimately stumbling, quite literally on this occasion, upon his goal, when, in the approaching twilight, his foot caught partly in a gorse root and partly on a largish stone, and over he went.
Whoa! Oh, no, not another kink in me jigger. That's the last thing my handicap requires. Good Lord. No wonder I tripped. What a tangle. Hello? Now what have we here behind all this gorse and turf? Aha! Yes. Napped flints embedded in mortar. My eyes don't deceive me. A series of overgrown low walls. Why, Perkins, you clever devil, you. I think you've only gone and found it. Right. Time, I fancy, for the pocketbook and trusty propelling pencil. We'll show old Hat a thing or two, won't we, Perkins? Definitely enough here to reward the spade of the explorer, if armed with a solid plan from the Samson Morden of a remarkably talented amateur archaeologist, even if I do say so myself. Oh, now, that looks particularly promising, but how to describe it? A series of humps or mounds? Mounds looks better on the page. Apparently arranged in a circular form. I'm sure the Knights Tinkler were in the habit of building round churches, yes. Featuring an oblong eminence. Yes, very good word, eminence. Lying east, sun setting over there, so yes, that's west, meaning that is east. East of the centre of the circle. Most likely the base of the platform, sarcophagus, or altar. I wonder what lies beneath the surface.
In an effort to answer that eternally most provocative of questions, Professor Perkins knelt down beside the aforementioned eminence, and noticing as he did that at one end a small patch of turf was already missing, he opened his penknife and began scraping tentatively away at the earth for evidences of masonry. And now followed another little discovery. A portion of soil fell inwards as he scraped, disclosing a small cavity.
Hello? What's this then? Anything in there? Dash it all, it's getting rather dark to see. Perhaps I should just come back. No, wait there. I'm sure I have. Yes. Oh, blast it. Try again, shall we? Blasted wind. It's almost as if it... Still, I think I could just squeeze my hand in and have a rummage around. I mean, what could happen? It couldn't be as bad as that first night in Dorm at Eton. Let's see now.
The contortion of his metacarpals rewarded, Professor Perkins found his fingers tapping and scraping the edges of the void, defining as they did an artificial hole in the masonry. It was rectangular, and at the top, sides and bottom, if not actually plastered, smooth and regular. Of course it was empty, but no! His fingers touched, or were touched. Something solid rolled, and there was a metallic...
What are you? If I can just get my fingers to you. No, not that way. I have you. Now, if I can just ease you gently out through the crack, and... a full-size Broadwood & Sons iron-framed concert grand. Circa 1125 and 3/8. Now that, I confess, I did not expect.
And neither one assumes did the majority of our listeners, but such is the way of parody.
By now, it was too late and almost too dark for Perkins to think of undertaking any further search. That would have to wait until the morning, and so, feeling it was of some slight value at least, he slipped the grand piano absently into his ticket pocket. I'd like to see bloody Jonathan Miller try that on film. Definitive adaptation, My Sunday Bonnet. Yes, but anyway. With that, Perkins turned to leave. Bleak and solemn was the view on which he took a last look before starting homewards. A faint yellow light in the west showed the links, on which a few figures moving towards the clubhouse were still visible, leaving one of military bearing, apparently jumping up and down upon a set of golf clubs and shaking his fist impotently at the North Sea.
Bloody popery!
The wind was bitter from the north, but it was at Perkins' back, pressing him forward towards the cock. He quickly rattled and clashed through the shingle and gained the sand, upon which, but for the groins, which had to be got over every few yards, the going was good and quiet. One last look behind to measure the distance he had made since leaving the ruined Tinkle's church showed Perkins a prospect of company on his walk, in the shape of a rather indistinct personage.
Good Lord. That fellow seems to be making great efforts to catch up, but making little, if any, progress. I mean, there's an appearance of running about his movements, but the distance between he and I... No, it doesn't seem materially to lessen. I wonder if he works for the railways. Well, it'd be absurd to wait until he comes up. I wonder who it can be. The Colonel, that boy? No, I almost certainly don't know them. And for all that company might be welcome on a lonely shore, what would one do if such company turned out to be? Well, one remembers old tales, of course. What if one looked back and caught sight of a black figure sharply defined against the yellow sky and saw that it had horns and wings? What if it's an estate agent? No, children's stories. Don't be an idiot, Perkins. This fellow is no such phantasmagorical beast. But I wonder whether I should stand or run for it. In such a diabolical circumstance, I mean. But you are running, aren't you, Perkins? Running for dinner, that's all. Dear me, it's within a quarter of an hour. I mustn't be late. Yes, I must not be late.
Perkins arrived back safely, if a tad breathlessly, at the Cock, and found he had indeed scant time to dress fully for dinner, opting instead to slum it, rather, in white tie, wing-collar shirt, Marcella waistcoat, tailcoat, and over-knee silk evening socks. Trousers, he unilaterally decided, would be, under the circumstances, an extravagance. Much to the disquiet of his fellow guests. Having dined in this bohemian style, Perkins retired to his room close to midnight. The night was clear and bright, as he saw when he opened the casement, and stopped for an instant to look out to sea, and noted as he did a belated wanderer stationed on the shore in front of the inn. Then Perkins shut the window.
What late hours people keep in these rustic communities.
Before turning in for the evening, Perkins took time to neatly hang his hastily discarded tweeds, and when he did, he was reminded by the slight bulge to the ticket pocket of his little discovery that afternoon. The professor gingerly removed the grand piano from his jacket, and with some considerable curiosity examined it by the flickering lights of its integrated candelabra.
A concert grand, eh? Well, you certainly need a bit of a clean-up, don't you, old thing? Let's see how dirty you've got inside. Well, nowhere near as bad as I feared. But what's this?
As Perkins stared upon the ivories, he noticed that whilst dusty and yellowing, they've remained largely free of the sandy dirt which so extensively caked the French polished case. But what really caught his eye, though, was the inscription, applied in gold leaf upon the underside of the open lid. Where customarily one might read the instrument manufacturer's name, Perkins beheld instead a pair of somewhat more cryptic legends.
Latin? Well, I ought to be able to make it out, but I suppose I am a little rusty. Short one's a puzzle, but the long phrase does seem simple enough. It ought to mean, who is this who is playing? Well, the best way to find out is evidently to play for him, I suppose. But wait just a moment. I mean, here I am, a fussy bachelor academic, on his own, at midnight, in an unfamiliar, isolated locale, having just trespassed upon a deserted religious site belonging to a secretive, extinct monastic order and violated an altar or sarcophagus, perhaps, removing without permission a mysterious artifact-instrument inexplicably entombed, probably for good reason, within said altar or sarcophagus, perhaps, which I have then taken away with me without leave, feeling from that moment onwards persistently pursued by a non-specific yet irredeemably malign presence or supernatural guardian. And I am about to employ this mysterious artifact-instrument, having only just discovered writ upon it a cryptic legend in a dead language, but half of which I have been able to semi-reliably translate, a mere 48 hours subsequent to publicly announcing my complete repudiation of the paranormal in all its forms, effectively daring the very gods themselves to come down and punish me for my act of supreme hubris. And therefore I cannot help but wonder, is my attempting to play this piano the wisest possible course of action? Oh, fuck it, let's give it a whirl. I shall play it. I must play it. I must make beautiful music. Well, that was a bit of an anticlimax. Oh, dear God in heaven. What have I done? What have I done? What have I done?
Yes, what indeed had Professor Perkins done? What manner of unspeakable percussive horror had he unleashed by tinkling with such ill-advised abandon within his bedchamber?
Yes, Monty, what was it?
What had he released?
Was it sticky?
All good questions, my dear boys, and ones which I fancy I shall answer after a short intermission.
Oh, Monty.
A short intermission, that is, for drinkies.
Sherry!
Sherry, anyone?
Sherry!
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 Sherry!